This is my house. Get out. That's when my brother-in-law yelled at my father inside the 425,000 seaside home I'd gifted my parents for their 50th anniversary. My mother's face was pale, her tears soaking the dish towel she gripped like a white flag. My father just stared at the floor, silent, trembling. My sister laughed, proud like chaos was her inheritance. I stood in the doorway, still holding the cake, the keys cold in my hand. I didn't shout. I didn't move. I only smiled once and said something that made the laughter die instantly. They thought they'd taken everything. They had no idea what I'd kept. 2 weeks earlier, everything had felt lighter. The air smelled like salt and paint when I first unlocked the door of the little blue house by the water. I'd spent months hunting for it. Something modest, quiet with sunlight that moved gently across the walls. When I told my parents I wanted them to take a weekend drive with me, my mother thought it was a surprise dinner. My father packed fishing gear. Neither of them had any idea. They cried before they even stepped inside. Dad ran his hand along the banister like he was touching something sacred. Mom opened every cabinet, whispering, "It smells like lemon." I'd saved for years. Wrote the final payment on a night when the code on my laptop blurred from exhaustion. I wanted them to have one thing that couldn't be repossessed. One corner of this world where the air didn't smell like debt. Growing up, I learned how fear tastes. I remember Mom crying over late rent notices. Dad working double shifts at the plant. I was 10 when I learned to say it'll be fine, even when it wasn't. I paid Olivia's bills the same way I used to patch our broken chairs. Quietly, efficiently, like it was my duty. Every transfer, every favor, every rescue felt like control. It wasn't. It was just enabling chaos wrapped in love. So when I handed my parents the keys that day, I thought maybe I'd finally fix something permanently. I told them, "It's yours." Every part of it. Dad tried to speak, but his voice broke halfway through my name. Mom kept wiping tears and laughing at the same time. We sat on the deck together, the sky melting pink into the ocean. And for the first time in years, I saw them relax. They looked like people who finally got to breathe. Before leaving, I hid a note in the kitchen drawer. Just one line written on plain paper for slow mornings and loud laughter. Then I drove back to the city for a product deployment that night, thinking they were safe, that peace had finally found a home. But peace doesn't last long in families like ours. 3 days later, Olivia called my mother. By the 5th day, my phone buzzed with a photo of that same deck, different caption, "Home sweet home." Her account, her smile, her kids in my father's chair. I should have known the silence that followed wasn't gratitude. It was the quiet before the collapse. When I pulled into the driveway that Saturday, the first thing I noticed was the SUV parked crooked across the grass. A loud cartoon blared from inside. The front door was wide open, curtains fluttering in the wind. Something in my chest tightened before I even stepped out of the car. Mom was in the kitchen, her back hunched, clutching a towel. Her eyes were red. Dad sat still in a chair by the window, his fingers trembling on the armrest. The air smelled like grease and beer. Boxes were stacked everywhere, none of them his. Then I heard a man's voice from the living room, "Upstairs for us. The kids want the room with the ocean view." When I turned the corner, I saw Mark barefoot, holding a beer, standing in front of my father like he owned the place. Olivia was sprawled on the couch, scrolling on her phone, her flip-flops half off. Mom whispered my name like it was both a warning and a prayer. Mark didn't even look at me. "Family home, right?" he said. "We're just settling in." Olivia laughed. "Relax, Bella. You know Dad's bad with stairs. We'll handle things here." I could barely hear over the static in my head. The words, "family home," hit like a punch. I turned to my mother. "You told them." She shook her head, fast, eyes glassy. "They found out from a photo your dad posted." I looked at Dad, he couldn't meet my eyes. "She said it was fine." He muttered. The walls felt smaller. My sister's kids ran past, trailing sand across the new floors. Mark raised his voice over the cartoon. "Peak season's coming. We could rent this place easy. I already made a listing. Got to make the house pay for itself." I stared at him. "You what?" He grinned. "Don't be weird, Bella. It's family money." "Family house?" Mom tried to speak, her voice paper thin. "They just need a few days." A few days. That was always the phrase before everything turned into years. I wanted to scream, to throw them out, to remind everyone whose name was on the deed, but all I did was set the cake on the counter. "I'll be back tomorrow," I said quietly. Olivia rolled her eyes. "You're always dramatic." Mark waved his beer. "Bring more of that sparkling cider when you come. It's good." Outside, the ocean was so bright it hurt to look at. I got in my car and gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. They thought I was leaving to cool off. They didn't know I was driving home to plan their eviction. Legally, quietly, permanently. I parked 2 blocks away and walked back so I wouldn't storm in like a thunderhead. Anger makes mistakes. Precision does not. My hands were steady as I unlocked my phone and opened the folders I'd built for this exact kind of emergency payments, highway rules, screenshots, the trust paperwork I'd had my attorney prepare the week I closed. Each file felt like a little weight I could set down and use. At my desk that night, I pulled everything open and read it like an incision. The deed was recorded in a trust with my parents as lifetime beneficiaries. Clear, simple language that gave them exclusive occupancy. The listing my sister or Mark had posted used photos I'd taken, my descriptions word for word, and worst of all, the payout routing matched Mark's account. In the group chat screenshot, someone had typed, "We'll get him on board if mom cries." My stomach turned, but my fingers did not. I highlighted, printed, labeled. I called the OA before midnight. The woman on the phone was perfunctory at first until I read the clause aloud. No short-term rentals permitted. She went quiet, then told me what I already suspected: violations could be enforced, fines levied, listings removed. I thanked her and asked for an email confirming the rule. She sent it immediately. Proof. I booked a locksmith for first thing in the morning and left him a note. Victor will need to change outer lock, keypad reprogram. Small, mundane actions that felt enormous when they lined up. I forwarded the screenshot of the listing to the platform's trust and safety inbox and attached the deed and trust. I wrote a short, boring email to a neighbor list I'd found in the closing packet. Hello neighbors. There may be unauthorized activity at 24C View. I'm the trustee and will be taking steps to ensure compliance. I hit send with my thumb and watched the little blue dot move across my screen like a metronome. I didn't sleep much. When I finally fell into a shallow, precise kind of doze, my mind ran through contingencies. What if Mark refused to leave? What if Olivia posted a video of Dad crying? What if they tried to file some quick claim? I imagined their faces when their leverage collapsed. A small private cruelty that felt deserved. At dawn, I drove back with a manila folder in my lap. It held 5 things: the recorded deed, the trust instrument, a color screenshot of the Airbnb listing, the forwarded chat log where Olivia admitted the plan, and a printout of the HOA clause. The folder smelled faintly of printer ink and coffee, which somehow steadied me more than any pep talk could. When I walked up the path, the house looked the same as the day I had left it: blue paint, white deck, 2 palm shadows leaning over the railing. Inside, there was a new soundtrack, a cartoon theme looping, a child's giggle, the clink of beer cans. Mark waved a hand at me like I was an uninvited extra. Olivia's laugh sliced the air. My mother's face folded in on itself. I didn't raise my voice. I set the folder on the coffee table and arranged the pages with the care of someone setting a surgical tray. Everyone to the living room. I said, not loud, not dramatic, precise. The kids paused. The dog cocked its head. Mark's grin faltered like someone pushing against a surface and finding it has become glass. This is my house. Get out. Mark's voice bounced off the walls as I stood by the mantel. The folder of documents in my hands. My father's shoulders slumped. My mother's face was wet and small. Olivia smirked from the couch, legs crossed, phone in hand. I laid the first page on the coffee table. Deed, I said, tapping the header. Recorded last week. Property owned by the trust I established. Lifetime beneficiaries Sam and Ruth. They have exclusive occupancy, and Mark scoffed. Big words. It's family property, I said evenly. It's theirs, not yours, not mine. I set the second document beside it. Trust instrument. I'm trustee. My legal duty is to remove anyone who interferes with their peace. Olivia's voice turned sweet. We're helping. Dad can't handle stairs. We're just settling in. I cut in. I dropped the next page. A printed screenshot. Your listing, entire home. Booked weekends through August, payout to Mark's account. Mom gasped. My father closed his eyes. Mark's jaw tightened. You're not here half the time. It's only fair, he said. This isn't fairness, I said. It's theft dressed as family. Olivia's tone sharpened. Don't be dramatic. I flipped the next page. Text messages filled the sheet, her line in gray. We'll get her to cave if mom cries. Mark's response, peak season baby. Free money. Silence cracked open the room. Mom stared at the paper like it might explode. I placed the final page. OA rules. No short-term rentals. Violation already reported. The TV cartoon went mute. Even the air stopped moving. Mark leaned closer, beer in hand. Or what? You'll call the cops on your own family? Or I'll fulfill my duty as trustee, I said. I set my phone on the table, screen up. Here's the drafted email to the HOA board. Here's one to the county recorder. Another to the rental platform, listing link attached. And this, I pointed to the open text thread, is Victor the locksmith. Parked outside. A car door shut outside, crisp and calm. Olivia paled. You wouldn't dare. Mom looked at me trembling. Bella, do what you need to do. Permission. After years of excuses, she'd finally given it. Mark straightened, puffed his chest. You think paper scares me? No. I say reality does. He lunged to grab the documents. I moved them aside without breaking eye contact. Don't touch my work, he sneered. Your work is money. My work is protecting them. Olivia's voice cracked. You're humiliating us. You did that when you posted Home Sweet Home from someone else's kitchen. I took a slow breath. Here's what happens next. You'll pack your things, delete the listing, refund every booking, apologize, and leave your keys here. Olivia laughed too high. Or what? Victor changes the locks in 5 minutes, I said. And you can film your tantrum in the driveway. The doorbell rang 3 cheerful chimes. The dog barked. That's him, I said. Mark turned toward the sound. Don't touch that lock. Victor stepped inside, tool bag on his shoulder. Afternoon, you must be Bella. I nodded and handed him a paper, authorization letter, trustee signature. He read it, smiled politely, and went to work. Mark pointed at my father. Old man, tell her to stop. Dad's voice cracked, but it held. This is our house. We're staying. A mom's hand slid into his. For once she didn't apologize for it. Mark sputtered. You'll regret this. Bella, I regret enabling you for a decade, I said. This is correction, not cruelty. Olivia's kids had stopped moving, wide-eyed and still. Even the dog sat down. Kays, I said, holding out my hand. Mark slapped his on the table. Olivia tossed hers after a pause. Victor's drill work clean and final. A few clicks later, he appeared with the new keypad. Code's ready. Who gets it? I looked at Dad. You pick. He whispered 4 numbers, his wedding month and year. Victor entered them, nodded, and handed me the instruction strip. I placed it in a folder labeled, Happy Things, on the entry table. Olivia watched, lips talk to me. I have been, I said. You just mistook silence for permission. Mark crossed his arms. Well, see you in court. You won't, I said, because I'll see you first. He glared. You think you're clever? No, I said. Just prepared. Outside, Victor packed up his tools. All done? He said softly. Old keys won't work anymore, thank you, I replied. Mom sank into a chair, shaking. I didn't want to choose sides, she whispered. You didn't, I said. You stopped pretending there weren't any. She nodded slowly. My father's hand rested on hers, steady now. The air changed, the cartoon flicked off. Wind whispered through the open deck door. For the first time since I'd walked in, the house exhaled. Mark and Olivia carried boxes down the stairs, muttering threats about lawyers and loyalty. On the porch, Olivia paused, eyes glossy. You think this ends here? No, I said. It ends when you stop taking what was never yours. She blinked, turned, and walked toward the SUV. The dog jumped in after the kids. Mark slammed the door and peeled out, tires scraping gravel. When the sound faded, the house seemed to settle into its bones again. The ocean breathed. The windows sang softly in the wind like they were remembering what calm sounded like. Mom poured tea, her hands trembling less now. I didn't want you to see this side of her, she said. I needed to, I answered. Boundaries don't exist until someone crosses them. Dad looked at me over his cup. I should have said something sooner. You did. I said. You called me. That was enough. I opened my laptop, forwarded the HOA confirmation, and canceled the illegal bookings myself. Everyone with a short note. Listing removed by owner. Refund issued. I typed a neighbor letter. You may have seen extra cars. Confusion resolved. No rentals moving forward. When I finished, I felt lighter. Not triumphant, just clean. Mom sliced the cake I'd brought, the one that had waited through the entire confrontation. She laughed once at the absurdity of it, then handed me a plate. We ate quietly. The icing was lemon and sugar, sharp and sweet. My phone buzzed, a notification from the platform confirming the listing's removal, followed by one from the HOA acknowledging compliance. The last message was from Olivia. You made Mom cry. I deleted it without opening. Dad looked out the window at the water, his profile soft against the glass. It's finally quiet, he said. I nodded. That's how love should sound. Faintly. We'll get used to that. As the sky dimmed to a deep gold, I slipped the documents back into the folder labeled, Boring Armor. Because boring, I'd learned, is the opposite of chaos, and that's how peace stays. Outside, the waves rolled in steady and slow. Inside, my parents breathed in sync with them, safe in the home I'd built, guarded by boundaries that finally held. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the windows, quiet and steady. The house smelled like toast and ocean salt. My father sat on the deck with his coffee, legs crossed, reading the paper he hadn't touched in years. My mother hummed softly while watering the plants I'd brought the day before. For the first time in a long time, peace didn't feel fragile. It felt earned. Online, the storm came and went. Olivia's posts about betrayal and greedy siblings lost traction. The platform banned her account. The HOA issued her a warning letter. When she texted a demand for emotional damages, I didn't reply. Weeks passed. Mom sent me a photo of her feet on the deck rail, pink toenails glinting in the sun. Dad called to say he'd finally slept through the night. That was all I needed. One evening, my niece Mia messaged me, "Grandma looks happy there." I typed back, "Come visit with her permission." No bookings, just pancakes. Sometimes victory isn't loud. It's the quiet after the storm, the sound of locks clicking, of love staying exactly where it belongs. A month later, I drove back to the coast. The house glowed in the evening light, calm and alive again. Through the window, I saw my father reading, glasses sliding down his nose. My mother sat beside him, a puzzle spread across the table, her laughter mixing with the ocean breeze. I didn't go in. I just stood there listening to the sound of peace I'd fought for. Here's what I know now: love isn't covering chaos with kindness. It isn't letting people steal under the excuse of family. Love is a house with working locks, paperwork that holds, and parents who can breathe easy. If you've ever had to protect someone you love from their own family, tell me in the comments. And if this story hit somewhere deep, hit subscribe. There are more stories like this, of betrayal, boundaries, and the quiet revenge that finally sets you free.